Hi everyone, welcome back to Needle Workshop. My name is Emily and today I'm going to show you a short video, hopefully short video, on how to adjust a neckline. Most patterns that you'll find today are all standardized according to a standard chart of US measurement sizing or in European measurement sizing. They vary from country to country, but in this case we use the US standardized system. So every neck size for every size is standardized, but sometimes people can have wider necks than the average small person, for instance, or the average medium or the average XL. So when that happens, how do you make the neck a little bit, like the neckline, a little bit bigger? It's actually not that hard, so I'm going to be showing you how to do that today, and it can be applied to any pattern going forward. Additionally, I will be showing you how to do that on my computer. I'm using one of our digital patterns. In this case, I'm going to be using the Japanese schoolboy uniform shirt. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because it's easier for me to film that than to do it flat on my work desk. So everything that you're going to see can be done with a pencil and a ruler rather than on a computer. It's actually easier to do it that way, but because it's easier to film on the computer, I'm going to be doing it on the computer. So without any further ado, let's take a look at what we have. Okay, so here we have all our pattern pieces. So important for this kind of modification, you'll need your front bodice piece, your back bodice piece, any collar piece that goes with the shirt. In this case, we have like a stand collar, and any facing that comes with it. So that's very important. And also, if the shirt or the pattern has any kind of lining, that will also affect the neckline of that piece. So every piece that has to do with the neckline needs to be taken into account when you make these kind of modifications. So our back facing goes right here. You can see it matches the neckline perfectly, and the notches would match perfectly, so that's not a problem. And then just to take a look here, your collar pieces, let's move these ones out of the way for now. Your collar pieces, this section to this section would match the back, and then this section to this section would match the front. So I would suggest the first thing is to remove your seam allowance, because working with the seam allowance can skew or you can accidentally skew your measurements when working with it. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna select, in this case, we're gonna select the full piece. So we're gonna go -1 cm. So this is what I want to work with here. Now my center back is actually on fold, so there's no seam allowance at the center back. So it's important to not put a seam allowance here because it'll skew everything. There you go. So you want to do the same with the front. Here I'm removing the seam allowance from all around my piece just because it's faster on the computer, but you don't need to do that when you're doing it flat. So here we go. Here 1 cm all around. So this here is my new measurement. And here you see this is important to know, at least for this pattern, is that here at the front you have a notch. What this notch is the center front. So this is where this piece would align to if you were sewing it in place. So that's actually a very important thing to take into account when doing all your measurements. You can also go ahead and remove the seam allowance from the collar piece. And you can do the same. Actually, you don't need to worry about the facing for now. And we won't worry about these two pieces because essentially we'll use this piece to adjust these two. So this is what's important right now. The best way to know how much you need to add to your neck piece to know how big you need it to be is, in my opinion, to make a mock-up first, and then when you try it on, you kind of mark on your mock-up how much you need to remove for it to be comfortable. So if you wanted to know how much to remove without having to make a mock-up, which I do not recommend, you would want to measure around your neck. Yeah. Get a rough idea. So in my case, that would be 37, but I know that this piece would fit me. So let's say we have a 47 centimeter neckline instead. So we have 47. 47, now we're going to divide it by 2 because technically this is only half a neckline. So we want half the measurement. 47 divided by 2. 23. Let's round it down to, let's give it 24. So we're rounding it up instead. So you'll have a little bit of ease at the same time. So 24. And right now our neck piece measures, so this piece measures 8.0826. So we're going to go 24 minus 8.08, let's say. Now let's measure the front. Up to, like, remember when you measure up to your notch. And that's 11.3589. Let's go 11.36. So I'm missing roughly 4.5 centimeters to make it comfortable for my neck. So what I want to do is, let's say we go 4.5 for a nice round number, divided by 2. I'm going to have to add 2.25 centimeters to each one. So the best way to do that is, I think I'm going to bring this in by about 1 centimeter, bring it down by 1 centimeter, which is going to skew my buttonholes a little bit. So I would need to adjust that. And then bring this down by 1 centimeter and bring it out by 1. I think I'm going to bring it out by 1 centimeter. However much you bring it out here needs to match at the front. So however much you remove at the shoulder needs to be the same on both sides. This is why this is not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is really to make a mock-up and kind of just see how much you need to remove for it to fit comfortably all around. You want to minimize removing too much at the center back, if only because you don't want to bring the collar down too much, and you also want to minimize bringing it down too low at the front. The best place to remove it is actually at the sides. So I just want to clarify something real quick here, and that's that when I decided on my measurements of 1 at the front, 1 at the back, 1.5 at the shoulders, it's actually just kind of a guess. I'm not actually 100% sure how much I need to remove until I've removed it and then re-measured to see if it matches the measurement that I'm looking for. But it's better to remove in small increments rather than remove too much at once. And like I said, you really want to minimize removing too much at the center back and at the center front. So I know for a fact that once I'm done with these modifications, I wouldn't have the 47 centimeter neckline that I mentioned earlier. So I would need to remove more until I get there. But it will nonetheless give you a good idea of how to widen a neckline. Let's go ahead and remove 1.5 at the shoulders, and remove 1 at the center front, and do the same thing at the back. 1 down and 1.5 to the sides. So we're going to measure out, 1.5. This is just so I can see how much to remove. So I would remove that. And then I would bring this one down by 1. I'm just going to go shift it down. Then I would reconnect the two. The center back you want to try to keep straight, at least for 0.5 centimeters or so. And then you kind of reshape it. Want to keep it as similar to the shape you had originally. I'm going to add an extra notch here so I can better. There you go. So now this would be my new neckline, and it is now, if we measure it, it was about 8.9 earlier, or 8.09. Now it is 9.6315. So it was made bigger. This is how you would make your neckline bigger. And you want to do the same thing at the front. So we're going to start by removing 1.5. Okay, and then we want to bring it down by 1 cm. Again, this whole section here from the front, from the end to the notch, is in fact straight. So that whole section needs to come down by 1 cm. Now, because the whole thing went down by 1 cm, I would recommend in this case to shift down all these other pieces by 1 cm, like all the notches, all the buttonholes and stuff, just so that they remain in their proper position. Yeah, so all the buttonholes and all the snaps have been shifted to match your new neckline. Now you delete this section. Well, or in the case of a flat, you would erase it, I guess, or just put some big X's on it, and then reshape your center front. So this is just really an eyeballing game, but you want to try to minimize a big curve that, like, you don't want this to curve in like that. That's not good. It should be going fairly straight. And then this should be going like fairly, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Fairly smoothly. And there you go. So now our neckline would be 12.4522. So yeah. So now that you have all this, what do you want to do? Well, you want to add back in your seam allowance. So that means that my seam allowance that I have right now, especially around the neck, is not good. So let's delete it and let's do it. Let's just put in a new one. There you go. And you want to bring down your notch. There you have it. So that's your new notch. That's your new center front. Matches the line where the snaps and the buttons are. And same thing with the back. Let's remove that. The notch needs to come down once. Yeah, there you go. Oh yeah, and remember our center back does not in fact have a seam allowance because it is on fold. So, oops, we need to remove that. It's very important, like this. All right, so now that the pieces on our bodice have been made bigger, we have to make sure that everything else matches it. All the other pieces match it. So the back facing and the collars in this case need to match it. I don't have any lining, but if I had a lining, the linings would also need to be matched. So the way you would remove it on a lining is, well, it really depends. If the lining is all the way up to the neckline, then you would match the neckline modifications that you did. And if the lining is split in two pieces where there's a facing and a lining and they sew lower, you don't touch the lower lining, you just touch the facing. So yeah. So for the back facing, it's actually quite easy because what you can do is like align. So I'm going to remove the side. Just going to work with half of it. So you can see that it's not good anymore, but you can just delete what needs to be deleted to make it match. So then you just bring this in. I was like, it's pretty easy because you can just kind of remove or add anything, but what's important is to make sure that it matches with the seam allowance, because I never removed the seam allowance from my back facing. So now I just need it to match, including matching the seam allowance. So you really just go and readjust like that. And there you have it. And then I only have half, so I'm just gonna mirror my shape. And there you go. Now I have, oh wait, I forgot to mirror my notch, very important too. The two notches should be at 1 cm from each other, so you can always measure that out. But there you go, that's the mirrored size. So my facing was adjusted to match the new shape that I gave my back. Yeah. Hello again. I need to intervene once more to give a little bit more information here. This works well on this pattern because the facing matched the back piece perfectly. But in some cases, even for this specific pattern, there's a female fit and a male fit. On the male fit, there's actually a pleat at the back, and therefore the facing does not have that pleat, so it's actually a bit smaller. So you would actually need to take that into account when adjusting your back facing. You would pretty much do the same thing, except you would only extend it to that notch before the pleat. So that's good. That's done. My facing is good. So what we're missing here is our collar. Now the collar can be a bit more tricky because the measurements can be harder to adjust. So if we go ahead and get my back, our back piece, I'm going to write this down. It's going to be written on the screen, but I need to write it down for myself. So it's going to be 9.6315. Let's go 9.63. It's my back bodice. And now my front. Again, remember, you want the measurement from the notch all the way to the shoulder. No seam allowance. Always no seam allowance. So it's 12.45. So how much do we need to add to the collar to match those measurements? Well, let's take a look. So my back is from right in between those two notches all the way to this notch. So let's see what that measurement is. That measurement is 8, 1, 2, 3. We'll go with 8.12. And then at the front, from the notch all the way to here, it's 11.73. Okay, so how much do I need to remove? Take out my calculator. At the back, I need to remove about 1.5 centimeters. Not remove, add 1.5 centimeters to my collar piece to match my new neckline. Now at the front, I need to add 77 centimeters. So how does one go about doing that? Well, it can be tricky. Usually you also want to add it at the top and not just at the back. So for the back piece, it's 1.5. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all of this. Control 1.5 and just... Okay, so it doesn't look like much. But essentially what I did is I shifted all of the front part of the collar out by 1.5 centimeters. Obviously, you'd want to do the same thing on the other side. So you've added that 1.5 centimeter. Like just to double check, let's take a look at our measurement. It's 9.634 and we had 9.63. So yeah, there you go. Now it matches. And since it's an easy fix, we can do the same thing with the other two pieces. There you go. So that's good. Now for the 0.77. So what you want to do here is you want to grab it right around where the curve is. In my case, I'm going to add some points here. And you want to pull it out 0.77. Now to make sure the other half is perfectly matched, oops, there's no need to remove everything. We can delete this. Okay, so you want to grab these two pieces, and again, you want to mirror them, copy. Now, I copied too much here, but let me just delete some of this. And there you go. And now we can double check to make sure that this piece makes sense. We have 12.5, and we had 12.45. Close enough. So it all fit on your collar. So now that we've modified this one, these two collar pieces are meant to match this one. So I would say now that we kind of have an idea of what we wanted, you would want to add the same thing to the front. So 0.7, about like this. There you go. And again, here you can delete and you want to flip it. And there you go. And then you have, in fact, corrected all your pieces to fit a larger neckline. So you can remove the inner piece. In my case, I'm going to remove them because my final piece is with seam allowance. So it would be all these pieces. So with all of this done, there are obviously some things to take into account. Every neckline piece can have variations in terms of like what the collar looks like, the type of collar, the type of facing, having a lining, having no lining. But that's the basic principle of it. That's how you would make a neck piece wider. And like I said at the beginning, the best way to do that is to make a mock-up, put it on you and see like, feels like it's digging at the sides. Just on your mock-up, just mark where it would more comfortably sit. Do the same thing at the back and do the same thing at the front. This way you're not extending needlessly where you don't need to extend. And this will give you how much to add. And then based on the measurements of your new neckline on your bodice, your pieces like your collars need to match those new measurements. And obviously once you have your pattern modified, you're not going to like what I'm going to say, but you need to make another mock-up and then make sure that the modifications you did are good. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful. We've had a lot of people ask us in our inbox how to do those kind of modifications. And obviously it's very hard to explain in a written format. So hopefully this video will help clarify some of that information. And yeah, you can look forward to new videos and new patterns coming out really soon. Oh yeah, and obviously as always, if you like this kind of stuff, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, boost the algorithm. You can check us out on our socials as well. We post a lot of stuff there that you won't find here on YouTube. And I think that covers everything for today. So as always, good luck with your projects, guys. Bye-bye.